Okay, here's my smallest base, and that's the one for this guy right here. Okay, so for this is just really a crazy coil right here. So what I'll do is I'll just be taking pieces of clay like this and making coils. Okay, and so now I'm just going to start compositing these pieces together. So I'll score, of course, wherever I want to attach, I'm going to score. Okay, is it looking at all so far like my initial drawing? Well, hard to tell except for the texture, but yeah, the texture's starting to be. I wanted some swirls, I wanted some crazy parts, and we'll see. I'll show you more on this one later, but now I'll show you a technique for the next one. So for this one here, I want a lot of roses, kind of like these roses here. Well, those are really easy to do. Okay, so to make these, you'll just go ahead and, as if you were just making a coil, we've got a little piece of clay right here. And I'm going to roll it out to a coil. Everything's the same. But then what I want to do is I want to thin it out, make it kind of flat. I could even use a rolling pin for this. Yeah, my little impromptu rolling pin. Okay, good enough. I was just too lazy. I didn't want to get up and get a rolling pin. Anyway, so I've got that thin. Okay, now we're going to take one of these edges here, maybe this bottom one, and really make it even thinner. Just really stretch that out. Even thinner. So you can see one end is kind of thin, but the other end is really thin, just almost paper thin. Okay, so what we're going to do is as we're going to roll this, some of this is going to expand and it's going to break apart. You'll see. I'll flip this over and just start rolling it up from the bottom. Now you got to keep it at something of a diagonal and keep bending these out. Okay, so here and here and here and here. You see I'm keeping it together at the bottom right here and just letting it be diagonal as it comes out. And you can see how I'm starting to get that rose sort of shape right there. Okay, so that's kind of a good one. If I wanted to, I could mess with it a little bit, just bending those petals out here and there, but fine. And then here, since this is where it's going to be constructed, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of push those together a little bit here at the end, smoothing it off a little bit. There, and I'm going to use this as my basic building block. So I've got that here. I think I can make another rose out of this one. So remember, folding this out as I do it. That's how I'll get it to break like that and make like a new petal. Okay. And hopefully with a little bit of practice, you'll just get better and better at this. Okay, smooth those ends together, just like on the first one. So I've got a couple of roses already, and I'm going to make just a couple of more, and then I'll start attaching them. Okay, so just like before, I want to go ahead and score. Always score where I'm going to attach. So I'm going to attach here, and then I've got this nice thick base that I've created. I'm going to score that up and mate those two pieces. Okay, so the roses probably won't fit one next to each other perfectly, or maybe they will. But if you need to, you can take just a little ball of clay, score where you're going to attach. Let's rough this whole thing up here. Okay. Score where I'm going to attach. And you can see those fitting together rather well. Now you're going to have to be a little careful not to crush your roses as you're putting them together. You know, like anything else, you'll get better and better at this. Right in here, I can see where I might take and put a little bit of extra clay. So I'll just score around in there, score here. If I need to, I could use my pencil here. Since pushing with my fingers here would just crush my roses, I use my pencil just to strategically get in. There we go, like into that center there, and get that a little bit. I'll put a couple more on there. On there. I'll put a couple more on here, and then I will test it to my key, right? Okay. I'm going to support these. It's getting difficult for me to even add another one without smoothing this in, so I'm going to do that. I'm holding this very gently. I'm just using this, letting the gravity of the roses themselves push against my hand. I'm not actually pushing against them because I don't want to crush them. It's delicate. Hopefully, though, you have built that relationship with the clay that I started talking about from the very beginning, because that's what's going to allow you to do this stuff. You got to build that relationship. Okay, I can see a weak spot right here, and maybe a couple things. One, maybe I'll push that over so it's a little bit tighter over here. Two, score it up real good. And three, insert just another piece of clay. Okay, so as I build this one here, just like when I was building with the coils, I'm going to go row by row by row, building this up. So I'd go all the way around here with my next rows, maybe make a few more roses, and then I would check it against my key right here. But this time, whereas before with the coils, I'd really, get it in there, really push it. This, I'm just using this as a guideline. So I just want to see like, okay, for this, I'd want these to come out a little bit more. See if I can show you it here without them all falling apart. It'll be a lot stronger when I get the full circle on here. But just going and lining things up like this here. Next row, let's say for instance, would be on here like this, coming out a little bit. So forth and so on until I build this all the way up to the top. So I'll show you this a little bit more as I get a little bit more of this built. Okay. So sort of the third example had the leaves and the flowers, more like this one here. And so I just build a composite. Sort of a composite within a composite. So I'm just going to once again take something like this. I would probably go ahead and make something of a coil shape because it'll be easier to get pieces of clay off of it that way. Okay, and so then I can cut pieces that are about the right size, like here, 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 and here. So that's 4 pieces about the same size. And what I'll do is I'm going to ball these up. So now I'm going to have 4 balls that are about the same size. From here, what I'll do is I'm just going to make one end narrow, leaving the other end fat. There, and here, and here, and here. Okay, and then from there, what I could do is I could just push it down with my thumb, thus getting sort of the petal-like shape that I want. I think looking at this one now, I'd probably make them a little bit bigger than this. But this is the basic construction. Here and here. Okay, so I've got these 4 petals now. So I can just put them together like this. Where they attach, of course, I'll score. Okay, and put them together with that good old little wiggle and a push. I don't want to destroy that edge right there. And here we go. And finally this one. Okay, so I've got my little flower shape right there. So then what I'll do is across the back, I'll score. And I'll smooth. So that those pieces are pretty well attached. Then I think for the center, I'll just take a little piece like this, another little ball, score it, put it on, and give it a little push right there. And that's going to be my basic flower that I'm going to use to construct. Now I'm going to make a few more of these, and like I say, I think I'm going to make them a little bit bigger than this one. So I'll make a fatter coil. Okay, so this one's a lot fatter than the other one. Go ahead and break off a few pieces that seem to be about the same size. Ball them up, so forth and so on. Okay, so here you can see I've got enough of these little ball shapes, a little bit narrower on the end, fatter than on the other, to make a couple of more flowers. And so you notice too that they're not exactly the same size. Like this is much bigger than this one here, and this was bigger than the ones that I used for this. But that's okay. They're just going to make different sized flowers. And I think for this, having a little bit of diversity is actually going to be kind of a good thing. Okay, so now that I've got 3 of the flower shapes going on, I think I'm going to make a leaf shape or 2. And so that's easy. I'm just going to make that same sort of little cone-like structure like that, where it's just a ball that's skinnier on the one side and fatter at the base, right? And then I'm just going to flatten it out, and this time making more like a ficus leaf kind of shape. And I can make different ones of different sizes. Doesn't matter so much. Okay, so I've got a few balls that I'll use for berry-like shapes as well. I think I'm going to add just a little bit of detail on the leaves as in the form of this little bit of serration on the edge there, and maybe a split down the middle. I might come back to that. Here, maybe something. There we go, something like that. And I'll probably clean that up. I'll clean up everything a little bit later on. Now look, don't make 2 things too thin. See, this is not thin here. These here are not too thin, right? Because not only are they decorations, but they're part of the construction as well. So they do have to have a little bit of heft to them. Okay, so I've got my base right over here. And so, like anything else, I'm going to score where I attach. And let's see here. I'll go ahead and with this one right here, I'm going to get a little bit of extra clay just to throw in here or there to help shore things up. So I've got this here, and I can see where I could use just a little bit of extra clay right here. See, once again, it's kind of that cone shape. So I'll stick that here, and I'll stick this guy right here. And there, I've started building it already. All right, smooth that in a little bit. And then, who knows, maybe a nice little leaf shape here would be good. So that looks like it will about fit on its own. So I got that, and I'm going to score here where they're going to attach. So I've got that little leaf shape in there, and I'm going to score across right away, and also smooth that out a little bit. Okay, so here I'm going to put another flower, this time the smaller one right here, and I can see where it could use a couple little pieces of clay. So right here, just score that, score a little bit in the back here. I can just wedge that in, and I can score where this is going to attach right here, and everywhere, here, here, etc. Fit that in. You can see I can use a little bit more clay right here. So I'm just going to get a little bit. And later on, a little bit here. Later on, we might use some of the berry shapes to also wedge in there and add a little bit more support. And so in the back here, where these are all sort of loose, before I go too much further, I'm just going to score across those, just kind of mushing them together really is what I'm doing. And then smoothing it back out, making it into one solid strong piece. As needed, I might even take where I can see where it's a little bit thin, here and there, and I can just add a little bit of clay into that. Score it up first, and pushing from the center out, always from the center out. That way you don't trap air bubbles underneath. So like here for instance, you can see it, and I'll just put a little bit of extra clay right in there, and from the center of this out. And that's what making this wall a little bit more consistent. Just like the others, I'll build this up a little bit, and then I'll show you the results.